Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is the story about Naruto. What if Naruto become a kami half-god part 9. Hope you'll enjoy this video. So before we start, please do support for more awesome content and also hit the subscribe button and share this video with your friends. And also support the creator of this fanfic. I have created many playlists, check it out in the channel. So let's start the video. The next morning Naruto awoke and found Ino laying on his chest, and he smiled and looked at the clock before he reached under the covers and slapped Ino hard across the ass. Ino jerked awake and screamed a moment in pain and shock before looking around and said, "What the hell was that for?" Naruto said, "Purposely messing up my apartment when you heard I was in town." Ino looked sheepish and Naruto asked, "So how are you doing?" Ino said, "Better now that you're here." Naruto sat up and blinked as he saw Ino was only in a pair of shorts and a tank top, and he shook his head and said, "So what did you do while I was away?" Ino looked down and Naruto said, "Besides slapping Tsunade, that is." Ino eyes widened and said, "I guess you would hear about that." Naruto said, "Yeah, your old man came looking for me along with his two buddies to see if I knew what was up with you." Ino looked up in shock and Naruto said, "Poor guy, didn't know what the hell to think after Desire showed him what happened between us." Ino paled as her eyes got wide and said, "What are you talking about?" Naruto pointed to his sword and said, "Remember how I saw your dream, that one time we Desire over there is alive? She was the one who was able to pull me into your dream. When your dad and his buddies found me and my team on the way back, I guess she felt I was in danger and cast over my entire team and your dad and his teammates. She then showed from the moment you first attacked me to my punishment of you and nearly every little talk we had, including your real feelings, though she did keep our more intimate moments a secret, but he knows that you're my servant now, and he actually said you're just like your mother who was the same way. Bet you didn't know that, did you?" Ino eyes widened and said, "Mom was like that, nobody ever told me." Naruto said, "Well, if your mom was like that, it was probably a lot of bedroom activities, and I don't think your dad with his previous image of you would have thought to tell you things like that. I think him hearing you say you had breast and how you should be used was the one that finally woke him up." Ino said, "So daddies are not going to kill you?" Naruto said, "No, he did give me the protective father speech I heard so much about, but nothing after that. We actually had a lot of other shit to deal with at the time, so I figure he will want to have a more private talk with me later, and one with you." Ino looked down and said, "Oh." Naruto put his hand on her shoulder and said, "I told him I would have you come see him in the next day or two. It's your choice. It's not something I will force you to do, but I do think you honestly need to have a heart-to-heart once with him. Tell him how you really feel. You have had years of practice of telling others what you think. I think you should do it again, but this time your real thoughts." Ino bit her lip and said, "I'm under house arrest. I can't leave the building." Naruto waved his hand and said, "I already got you cleared and got your put back on duty again, so you're fine. I've got my revenge on Tsunade and also gained some political power in the village. I'm also very rich right now and own a lot of buildings." Ino looked confused and asked how, and so Naruto told her about Sasuke and Hinata's secret relationship and then about the council meeting, and Ino bit her lip and said, "Oh my god, I can't believe that you tricked Hyuga-sama like that." Naruto said, "Well, I can be sneaky when I want to be. Especially when I had help anyways. There's something else I need to talk to you about. The day before you found me in the woods bleeding to death while you and Anko were in town, I met someone in the woods. It was Shizune at Tsunade Apprentice, but at the time I didn't know she was at Tsunade Apprentice. I just saw her as a woman who was crying in the woods that I tried to help." Ino smiled slightly and Naruto said, "When I first heard about my bloodline, I was scared of the village and the way they would treat me and my children. That was why I wanted to find Tsunade in the first place. I had the idea of securing my bloodlines and protecting any children I had from both my family's enemies and Konoha. When I met Shizune, I still had that idea in my mind, and..." Ino eyes widened and said, "You slept with her?" Naruto said, "I did more than that. I told you about my ring. I didn't tell her how, but I did tell her before we did anything she would get pregnant, and she agreed. I honestly thought she was a woman who wanted a child to raise and didn't have a husband or lover, and that we would never see each other again. I just wanted to protect any children I had." As he looked down, Ino frowned and said, "So what does this mean for us?" Naruto said, "I told Shizune about us last night. In Konoha, you and her are the only two I have any feelings for. I flirted around to throw off suspicion, and I've formed a bond with one other, but there are no other babies out there. You're the strongest bond I have, though I know that Shizune and I have feelings for each other, and they could grow, but they're different than the ones I have for you." Ino looked down and said, "Because I'm just a servant." Naruto said, "No, you were never just a servant, Ino." With a small smile, as she looked up in shock. Ino asked, "I'm not." Naruto said, "No, remember the vows we said to each other. I meant every word of them. You are my first true friend and my companion. They may not sound like much, but to me, they mean more than you could ever imagine. If I could, you would have been the only mother to any child I had, but I knew that there was no way I could pull that one off. My bloodlines will be to be desired, and sooner or later either they will try to steal it or force me into producing more heirs. To protect you and any children we might have, I have to have more than one lover." Ino said, "So you're just using Shizune?" Naruto said, "No. The bond I have with Shizune is unique as well. We both thought we would never see each other again. I know Shizune cares about me, but she cares more about the child she is carrying. While she would like me in her life and the child's life, she would raise him or her by herself if she thought it was best for her child. I would like to be in their life, though that is why I told her about you and why I am telling you about her and the baby. I could have kept it a secret, as Shizune would deliver, and it will be known she was pregnant before ever coming here, so nobody would have known who the father was besides her and me, so I could have hid it, but I didn't, because I thought you deserved to know the truth. Ino bit her lip, and Naruto reached up and pulled it out of her teeth and said, "Stop that. Only I get to bruise them." Ino covered her mouth to keep from laughing, but Naruto could see the way her eyes curled up, and she said, "All right, I knew before that I would most likely be pushed to the back for someone else, since that was what I asked for, but thank you for not pushing me back. I know you have to have others, and I think you're right about your reasoning, but how many are you planning to have, and who?" Naruto said, "Well, Sakura has been hitting around the idea, but I think I'll keep her as just a friend and teammate that I flirt with, and teasing her rejections over the years hurt me a lot, so I doubt I could ever trust her with a relationship more than that. Her feelings for Sasuke are real also, and even though he has Hinata, he is still going to have more than one, so I think I might be able to help them get together. I am sweet, but I see her as a sister of sorts. That red-eyed sensei Hinata has is hot in an exotic kind of way, but I don't know anything about her, and I think I would only care about the sex since she's as good looking, but that's shallow of me, so I won't try to get to know her, since I want real relationships, not just sex flings." Ino said, "Been thinking about it a lot, huh?" Naruto said, "You have to understand, I didn't know how much I could trust you at the beginning. I was going to release you at the Chunin exams, remember?" Ino looked away at that, and Naruto said, "But I don't think I'll ever release you now. I care too much for you to let you go, unless it makes you happy, and then it would hurt." Ino said, "So you haven't got anyone else that you want to help you?" Naruto thought for a moment and said, "There's one I would like to get to know as a possible friend, but none that I could see as a romantic relationship here in Konoha." Ino said, "What about out of Konoha?" Naruto said, "There's one I would like, but she's already a mother of a child, and I did sleep with her, but that was more of a comfort thing than a lover sexual thing, but her situation was very, very unique, but she deserves a better life than any I could offer her. I might see her sometime if I am ever in her area, but that's only cause I'm literally the emotional shoulder she needs to cry on. Her husband was murdered in front of her and her son. Her son's father was killed in a fishing accident, her country had been enslaved, and some things happened that were worse than seeing her husband killed in front of her, and the worst part is she couldn't talk to anyone about it because she had to be the pillar of strength for her family to take care of her son and her father, who was our client." Ino thought for a few moments before her eyes widened, and Naruto said, "I bet you could guess what I'm not saying, so drop it." Ino looked down, and Naruto said, "Sorry, I'm defensive about it because I don't want to upset you, but the situation I have with Shizune and Tsunami are both ones I wouldn't change just because I feel a connection to them. Both are women who have experienced pain in their life, and it reminds me of my own pain, and I." Ino pulled him into a hug and said, "I understand you have a big heart, Naruto. You know who you turn to when you need someone's shoulder to cry on, though." Silence was her answer, and she waited a few moments and said, "Just let it go, I'm here for you." Naruto was silent for a few moments and started speaking quietly and got louder the more he spoke. "I hate them. I hate the villagers, I hate Tsunade, I hate the Sandaime, I hate my father, I hate all of them. I never had a choice. Sandaime lied to me about my parents and why I was hated. My father chose me to protect the village and left me nothing. Tsunade doesn't care about me. She cares about the connection I have to her past, just like Kakashi-sensei. He doesn't actually care for me, it's just his bond he had with the yondaime. The villagers are shallow assholes who only care about their own. They made my life hell, and they aren't sorry for it. I have to be the one to forgive them and be a better person. Why can't I be selfish and petty? Why can't I get revenge against them? Why the hell do I have to follow their rules and act like everything's is okay? As he was huffing for breath at the end, Ino was shocked to hear Naruto, and she whispered, "Shh, I'm here, just let it out." Naruto shook his head and said, "Crying doesn't do any good. I just got to live with it." Ino looked at Naruto and said, "Then make me pay." Catching Naruto's attention, Naruto blinked and said, "What?" as he looked at her. Ino said, "I'm a member of the village. I helped make your life hell. I invaded your mind, attacked you when we were kids, helped others make fun of you. I'm as guilty as the rest of the people in Konoha, so take your anger, your hate, your aggression out on me. Make me pay for all the pain and suffering you had." Naruto looked into Ino's eyes and saw the resolve she had and thought angrily, "Suit yourself." As he drew back his hand and looked at Ino's eyes, waiting for her to flinch or doubt, but she never moved her eyes away or weakened his resolve, and Naruto felt all the strength he felt from his anger had faded away, and he dropped his hand and began to cry. Ino pulled him close and thought, "Something I heard from Daddy when I was younger. Even the strongest pillar needs the support of others to help hold the burden. You have become my support, and I'll become yours, Naruto. Let me hold some of your pain. I'm strong enough to do that." When Naruto finally quit crying, he looked up at Ino, whose face was showing kindness and compassion, and he reached his hand up and rubbed it against her face softly before putting it behind her head and pulled her forward, and he smashed his lips to hers. Ino was at first shocked by this, but then began to return the kiss, and she let her hands move along his back as he pulled her closer and closer as he fell back on his bed, pulling her on top of him before rolling them where she was on the bottom. Ino felt the kiss break as Naruto began to trail kisses down her neck to her collarbone, and he began to give small love bites to her neck, causing her to moan as he reached up and began to rub her breast with his hands, and he started to unbutton his shirt before he groaned and said, "Damn it." Ino blinked as she felt Naruto stop and heard his groan and said, "What's wrong?" Just then there was a knock on the door and Naruto said, "Your dad's here." Ino's eyes widened and then she sat up as Naruto rolled off of her and she said, "What does he want?" Naruto said, "How the hell am I supposed to know? I'm going to go wash up. Invite him in and offer him something to drink." As he got up and went to the bathroom, Ino stood up and began to fix her clothes quickly before she went to one of the doors before opening it and looked as her dad was at another door leading into the apartment, and she said, "Hello, Daddy." Inoichi frowned for a moment and said, "Ino, is your master here?" Ino said, "Yes, Daddy, he's refreshing himself and will be out shortly. Please come in and have a seat. Can I get you anything to drink?" Inoichi closed his eyes and came in the door. Ino opened and said, "Water, please." As he walked over and sat on the couch, Ino closed the door and walked into the kitchen, and Inoichi said, "So you really are his servant then?" Ino said yes. As she came back with a glass of ice water and set it on the coffee table in front of her father. Inoichi rubbed his head and looked at Ino for several minutes as she stood there, and he asked, "Why didn't you ever tell me you felt that way?" "I could have." Ino said, "What could you have done? Love me more, bought me more things, spent more time with me. None of that would have made me feel any better. In fact, it would have made me feel worse. I was numb inside, Daddy. Nobody saw the real me. I could say nobody cared about me, but the truth is everyone cared about me so much I didn't know the difference between what real love was and just respect for being the heiress of the Yamanaka clan. Naruto was the first to see the real me. He was willing to punish me when I should have been punished and made me earn what I had. You told me once there was something special about seeing something you had to work at grow and bloom. I understand that now because I'm finally growing. And I'm finally starting to bloom. All these years I was just a seed in a bag and then pulled out of the bag and put in the soil. I didn't have to do anything up to that point. If it wasn't for Naruto, odds are I would have stayed in the soil and died just like bad seeds do. But now I'm growing on my own power. Can't you understand that, Daddy?" Inoichi bit his lip and said, "Yes, I can understand that now. I'm sorry, Ino. I just wanted to protect you and raise you the best I could. I never meant to make you feel that way." Ino said, "I know, Daddy. I know it's because you love me, and I love you, but I also love Naruto. I know you don't like the idea of me being a servant, but I'm actually happy. He takes care of me, but he's not afraid to stand up to me. Yesterday when I saw him passing by, I purposely messed up his place and then acted like I was asleep. As soon as he saw his place and saw me pretending to be asleep, he flipped the bed and told me to clean it. He didn't let it go, he didn't sugarcoat it. He proved that he wasn't going to let me just do what I want without caring about the cost of my actions. I tried to do the same thing before with you and the others, but… Inoichi said the kitchen fire, the dress. I heard it from his memory. It's shocking for me to have seen and heard that. I pride myself on being able to see things and gather information, but I failed to do that, and I had to have it pointed out by someone I didn't really have any respect for. No, hear me out. My lack of respect for him had nothing to do with Kyuubi. It had to do with the fact he acted like life was a joke. The way he laughed and smiled no matter what and showed such disrespect for people, it pissed me off. Naruto's voice came from behind him and said, then maybe you would have been happier if I was a typical person. One who took his anger and revenge out on the village. Maybe if I started making examples, as he walked around and drew back his hand in front of Ino. Inoichi's eyes got wide and he jumped forward, and when his fist hit Naruto, Naruto went up in smoke and Naruto's voice said, see, you were just lying to Ino and yourself. If you were telling the truth, then seeing me attack and possibly kill someone would have earned your respect, regardless of who it was I attacked or killed. But obviously that's not the case. You really don't have a problem with me, it just pisses you off that you failed to see the truth yourself and you want someone to blame, just like Konoha wanted someone to blame for the pain and suffering the fox caused. I'm an easy target, not only because I'm the one who pointed it out to you, but because you feel that I've taken Ino from you, that she respects me more than you, and in some ways you're right, but you are and will always be her father. I won't forbid her from seeing you or you seeing her, because like I told you before, master, servant, husband, and wife, they are all just titles given to define a relationship. I honestly see Ino as I would a wife in all ways, but name. I don't want to reveal our relationship publicly because I want to protect her. If you don't respect me, then tell me what it will take to earn your respect. I'm rich now, I'm a successful business owner who can take care of your daughter if either of us were injured. I come from a highly respected family. All the same things Sasuke had, and I never heard Ino say you were against her chasing him. As for respect, I do respect people, but only those who have earned that respect. Should I respect people like Danzo, who tried to basically kidnap your daughter, killed the Uchiha clan, and nearly started a war with another village? He was a respected member of the council and was nearly the Sandaime Hokage once. Should the people respect me for protecting Konoha by pretending to be a Jinchuriki to scare other villages away, or because I'm the son of a Hokage and related to 3 of the Hokages? The answer to both is no. I should be respected for the things that I do myself, not others. Maybe you believe that ninjas should be emotionless tools. If so, I'll ask Tsunade to get the records on Danzo training of his route and put Ino through it. Inoichi said, don't you dare. Naruto's voice said, then why can't I smile or laugh? Life is too short not to try and enjoy it, especially when we're ninjas and our lives are shorter than even civilians. Inoichi growled as he pulled at his hair and said, damn it, this isn't how I wanted things to go. I just wanted Ino to come home and give up this idea of being a slave. I wanted you to give up your control over her. Naruto said, done. Shocking Ino and her father as he continued, Ino has the right, as she always had, to come and go as she pleased. There are no legal documents claiming her as my servant or wife. It's all her choice. It's not me you have to convince. It's Ino. Now if you will excuse me, I need to go meet my team and find out what we are supposed to do today. Just close the door when you leave. As he appeared dressed ready in his normal clothes and started toward the door. Inoichi said, that's it. In a shocked voice. Naruto turned and said, what, you thought I would fight you or argue against you? It's pointless. You should know no better than that. You raised her and should know she will do as she wants, mostly regardless of what you or I decide. Personally, I would like to have your approval to be with her, but in the end it's not really my choice or yours. The only thing either of us have to really think about is what Ion will want and what she will do. Being a slave is her desire and dream. Also, she squeals when she's really excited, when she's punished by me. Ino turned bright red as Naruto walked out the door, and Inoichi glared at his back before he turned to Ino, who was wanting to get away from an embarrassing conversation, and she said, "I'm staying with him. He makes me happy." Inoichi sighed and said, "Ino, you're not old enough to make a decision like this." Ino said, "I'm a kunoichi, old enough to kill, old enough to drink, old enough to have sex, and old enough to die. I could be offered a political marriage or asked to be a mother already. If I'm old enough to do all that, then why the hell am I not old enough to make a decision about what makes me happy?" As she put her hands on her hips and glared at Inoichi. Inoichi rubbed his nose and said, "You are definitely your mother's daughter. I just don't want to see you make the same mistake your mom did." Ino asked, "What mistake?" Inoichi was silent for a few moments and said, "Your mother, when I first met your mom, it wasn't some great romantic moment or anything like that. Actually, I broke her nose." Ino's eyes got wide and said, "What?" Inoichi said, "Yaemi, Shukaku, and Chauza had just come back from our first beer rank mission, and we went to a bar and got really drunk. I don't remember everything, but your mom was a newer somewhere about where you are now, and she came in the bar and got some alcohol, and she also used the phrase old enough to kill, old enough to drink. I was really drunk, and I mentioned that she should go back home because she wasn't old enough to kill, old enough to drink, or old enough to have sex. She didn't like being told that, and she went to punch me in the face, and I grabbed her fist, and she tried with her other hand to punch me, and I grabbed that one also, and I headbutted her, breaking her nose. After she tried to kick me in the nuts, the headbutt sobered me enough to cause me to worry about her after I saw the blood coming out of her nose." Ino asked, "What happened?" Inoichi's eyes glossed over and said, "She slashed my arm with a kunai when I went to check on her, and she tackled me to the ground. She held the kunai at my neck and said, 'See, you're dead.' I sort of lost it. I threw her off me, grabbed her, bent her over a bar table, ripped her panties off, and spanked her right in front of everyone." Ino was shocked, and Inoichi shook his head and said, "Looking back, I don't know which of us was more shocked, your mother, me, my teammates, or everyone else in the bar, but then your mom turned, while still on the table, looked me dead in the eyes, and for a moment she had the same look you had from that thing Naruto did, of what happened in that shack." Ino's eyes widened at that and thought, "Oh shit. He knows about that." Inoichi didn't notice, as he was lost in his thoughts, and said, but then her eyes hardened, and she said, "Well, what the hell you waiting on, bastard? I already proved I could have killed you. You got my panties off, so fuck me and prove I'm old enough for that, and then buy me a beer." She shocked me so much I didn't even realize it until later that she replaced herself with me, and I was the one on the table, and she used the same kunai to cut my belt and pulled my pants down, and well, let's just say when her dad walked in, I thought I was a dead man, but your mom surprised everyone by defending me against her dad. I fell in love with her right then and thereafter, that we became known as Inoichi and his Hellcat. She would cause all kinds of shit around town, and I would have to stop her by punishing her. You couldn't imagine the shit she could cause. I remember this one time she maybe I'll tell you that later," as he shook his head. Ino said, "But why do you think of it as a mistake, Dad?" Inoichi looked down and said, "Because of that night, because of what she was doing. When her dad walked in, she had to quit being a kunoichi. Her body couldn't handle being a mother at such a young age. She delivered a baby boy who was stillborn. She had so many complications from your brother's birth that her health was affected by it the rest of her life. It's what ultimately led to her death. That's why it was a mistake. Ino, I'm afraid that you might accidentally get pregnant at such a young age, and the same thing will happen to you." Ino bit her lip and said, "It can't happen. I can't tell you why, but Naruto is 100% fertile, so any woman he sleeps with will get pregnant, but his family left something for him that makes it where he's 100% unfertile while using it. There is no middle ground on this. I won't get pregnant unless he wants me to. When we do get that far, and he thinks I'm too young also. I promise you, Dad, I won't get pregnant until I'm ready." Inoichi said, "I just don't want to see anything happen to you, Ino. I love you." Ino said, "I love you, Dad, but like you made Mom happy, Naruto makes me happy. Please accept and approve of him being with me. I'll be with him regardless, but I would like your approval." Inoichi sighed and said, "I never could tell you no, but I get to threaten him to make sure he takes care of you, and if he ever looks like he's going to slap you like he did earlier, I'll kill him." Ino giggles a moment before she frowned and said, "Dad, I need advice." Inoichi grabbed his chest and said, "Oh God." Ino glared at him and he asked, "So, what do you need advice about?" Ino said Naruto got a lot of emotional baggage before you came here today. I was trying to help him. I got him to open up some, but he's got a lot of anger and hatred built up from all the years of abuse he's had, and I'm afraid it's going to someday consume him. Is there anything that can be done to help him? Inoichi thought for a moment and said give him some hobbies, he seems to like gardening. Get him to try it without his bloodline's help. Maybe painting, maybe you can get him to play shogi or go with shikamaru, maybe cooking. I can talk with Shikaku and Chaoza if you want, since he seems to be marrying into the family. Ino said I think he would like that. Also I can't tell you who, and it's not me, but he's got a baby on the way, Dad. If you could talk to him about being a father, he's nervous about that even if he doesn't admit it. Inoichi said I thought you said there couldn't be any accidental births. Ino said this one wasn't an accident. Both him and the woman planned it. I can't say anything else without breaking his trust, and I probably already said too much, but I want him to form a bond with you, Dad. This will give you a chance to get to know him better and be more in my life, please. Inoichi said alright, I'll see what I can do, and I'll keep what you told me a secret. Damn, I'm wrapped around your finger just like your grandpa was wrapped around your mom's. Ino smiled and said thanks, Dad, but we should get going. I need to meet my team and find out what's been going on while I was under house arrest. Inoichi said so he got you released. Ino nodded, and Inoichi said then I guess that means you can start working at our shop again today, after team practice if you can. Ino said yes, Daddy. As she closed the door behind both of them, Inoichi left while Ino went to get her supplies from her apartment. As Naruto walked through the village he saw a lot of people were looking at him in shock and thought either they thought I was dead or word spreads faster than I thought. As he jumped up on the roof of a building and began to travel by rooftop till he was outside the village nearing the training grounds. When he made it to training ground 7 he blinked as he saw the rest of team 7, team 8, and 10 minus Ino there, and he said am I late? Kakashi said only 10 minutes. Naruto said, sorry I'm late, I got lost on the road of life. Both Kurenai and Asuma sweat dropped and Naruto said so what's up? Kakashi said actually, I'm not sure. When we got here the other two teams were already here and both Asuma and Kurenai said they wanted to wait until all of you got here. I sent a cage bunshin to get you and the others, but it just met Ino and her father leaving your building. I informed Ino her team was here. Asuma said, but isn't Ino still under house arrest? Looking surprised. Naruto waved his hand and said nah, I got that cleared yesterday, so if you didn't tell Kakashi-sensei what you're here for then why are your teams here, if you don't mind me asking? Kiba said hey, why did you get Ink out of trouble, dope? Everyone pretty much heard she basically bitch-slapped the Hokage, and how did an orphan like you get her out of trouble? Naruto looked at Kiba and said you mean you don't know? Kiba said no what? In a confused voice. Naruto said turns out I'm the great-grandson of the Shadame Hokage, great-grandnephew of the Nidame Hokage, and son of the Yondame Hokage. I'm also the second cousin of the Godame Hokage. Kiba snickered and said yeah right dope. Kurenai said actually Kiba, he's telling the truth. Kiba's eyes widened and said huh well, just because your family is famous doesn't mean shit. You're still the dope. Sasuke said shut the hell up Kiba. Naruto is the strongest and best out of all of us. At this everyone was looking at Sasuke in shock, especially knowing Sasuke would never admit someone was stronger. Sakura said he's right. Naruto killed 2 Chunin missing nin, battle a Jounin level missing nin, as well as his apprentice, and killed over 100 mercenaries, eliminated a slave ring, created a plan to liberate a country, and practically saved all of Team 7 lives, as well as our client. Team 8 and 10 looked at Naruto in shock and said what? Kiba frowned and said I call bullshit. There's no way you could be that good. Naruto shrugged and said think what you want Kiba. I'll prove to you, and everyone else, that there is more to me than what they think so anyways, what are you guys here for? I can feel Ino chakra getting close, and she should be here in less than 2 minutes. Kurenai stepped forward and said I want the deal you have with the Uchiha cancelled. Hinata doesn't love him, and you had no right to use her like that. Team 7 looked at each other before bursting out laughing, and Naruto who was holding his side said, you didn't tell Sasuke. Sasuke tried to hold his side and said no, I thought Hinata-chan did. Sakura said oh god, that was actually almost as funny as watching Naruto play the council for idiots yesterday. Kakashi saw Kurenai was red-faced from being laughed at and said to Hinata, I think you might want to talk to your sensei privately for a few minutes and explain things. It's not funny to see her make herself look foolish for not knowing all the information." Hinata blushed and looked at Sasuke, who said, "Sure, go ahead. You are my wife now, since we had the marriage ceremony last night, so no one could back out." Kiba screamed, "Wife, what the hell?" Ignoring Kiba's scream, Hinata took a deep breath and said in a stutter, "Sensei Sasuke-kun and I have been seeing each other for nearly 4 years now." Kurenai's eyes widened and screamed, "What? But what about your crush on Naruto? All the times I saw you looking at him with your bloodline." Kiba was also shocked and he looked at Hinata in shock and then at Sasuke in anger. Hinata stuttered. "It was to keep my family from finding out, since the Uchiha and Hyuga clan don't like each other. If they thought I liked Sasuke, then I would have had that seal placed on me. My family thought that I was a disgrace even before I met Sasuke. He found me and comforted me after father said he would no longer train a failure like me." Naruto said, "Damn, I wish I would have known about that. I would have blackmailed Hiashi more than I did." Kurenai looked at Naruto, who said, "So is there some other reason you brought your team here then? To demand me to do something that your student didn't even want done?" Kurenai looked embarrassed and said, "I wish to apologize to Namikaze-sama." Naruto said, "Well, if you really are sorry, you could do me a small favor." Kurenai narrowed her eyes and said, "Oh, and what might that be?" Naruto saw Ino enter the training ground and said, "Take all 3 kunoichi here to the hot springs and discuss with them their training and give them advice as a seasoned kunoichi to them, while letting the 6 guys have our own discussion and advice day. That way all 3 of the sensei can evaluate their training of their students and see where we all are in our skills. The Chunin exams are coming up and I want to see how all 3 of our teams compare to each other, and since Hinata husband is here and Sakura and Ino were both fangirls of her husband, it might be a good idea to make sure there are no problems. Of course, like me, Sasuke falls under the clan restoration thing, so he might try and take all 3, who knows." Hinata glared at Naruto and said, "I still owe you for buying Sasuke a prostitute." Naruto said, "Why is it that when you're angry you don't stutter so well? Once I get rid of you 4, I'm planning on hiring a hooker for all the guys here." Everyone screamed, "What?" Naruto said, "What's so shocking? If we enter the exams with so many heirs to the clans of Konoha, the idea of sending in seduction specialists to try and steal Konoha bloodlines is a possibility, so by having each of the guys here experience seduction skills, they could better prepare to resist. As far as I know, the only 2 guys here who's ever had their cherries popped has been me and Sasuke. I even question our sensei on that one. Do you guys really want to die virgins? Hell, I'll even hire you both just to make sure." As he looked over at the pale Asuma and Kakashi, Kurenai marched over and went to punch Naruto on top of the head, and he moved in and placed his hand on her stomach and said, "Freeze." Kurenai blinked and said in a demanding voice, "What the hell are you doing?" as she started to move, and Naruto said, "Don't move." in a commanding voice. Kurenai narrowed her eyes as she felt chakra on her stomach and said, "All right, I'll bite, I can feel chakra on my stomach." "What are you doing?" Naruto said, "I've molded my chakra as a replacement. If the connection to my hand and your dress is broken, you will lose your dress and be standing only in what you have on underneath it." Everyone's eyes widened and Kurenai paled and said, "You wouldn't." Naruto smirked and said, "Believe what you want." Kurenai frowned and said, "All right, what do you want?" Naruto said, "Simple, I want the honest truth. All 3 of you will most likely put your teams in the Chunin exams. All of us except Sakura is a clan heir or heiress. That many heirs in one exam would be a huge target to either try and kill or capture, even if it is in Konoha. Have any of you honestly thought of how to prepare your teams in case someone tries to take our bloodlines during the exams? People die in these exams, and I've heard there's a survival part, so if there's a survival part then there is a time where we have to protect ourselves. All I am wanting to know is what you 3 plan to do, since if something happens to one of us, it falls on you." As he cancelled the chakra and stepped back. Silence went through the clearing, and Kakashi said, "I honestly hadn't thought of that possibility. Have either of you?" Asuma frowned and said, "No." Kurenai said, "Me neither. The exams are 2 months away." Kakashi said 6 weeks. Kurenai frowned and said, "All right, I admit I was wrong and upset about assuming that Hinata didn't like the situation you put her in, but I'm not having my students sleep with prostitutes to train them." Naruto said, "Of course not, I was just joking about that anyway, to get you to attack me." Kurenai blinked and asked, "Why would you want me to attack you?" Naruto said because you're a rookie jounin who is angry about being embarrassed in front of your team. And you are looking for a way to save face, and I figure that if I brought up the possibility of what could happen in the exams, that you would lie and say you had a plan, and then you would spend the next month trying to actually come up with a plan so you don't look like an idiot in front of Kakashi, Asuma, or us. You're proud, and you have every right to be. Women are naturally looked down on as weaker even though it's a crock of shit and have to work twice as hard for their rank, but pride is as much of a weakness as lack of skills, and I wasn't going to take the chance you let your pride endanger others. Kurenai frowned and said, how do you know so much about me? Naruto said to Ino, and I had a mission with Anko-sensei. She mentioned you once in her lessons she taught us. Ino said yeah, that was about the time she was teaching you to be a censor and basically beat the living hell out of you and your pride. Naruto said yeep, I learned the hard way pride can be your greatest weakness. She also made me read that book The Art of War by Sun Tzu as he looked at Ino. Ino said yeah, I think that was the name of the book and the author. I don't really remember since she had me learning about poisons at that time. Kiba said, why is Naruto's scent all over you? It's like you're practically bathing in his scent. Naruto said she lives in my apartment building and we ran into each other. Ino also has been looking after my plants while I was away so she's most likely got my scent from that. Didn't your mom ever teach you not to ask such questions? Kiba growled and said what did you say? Kurenai said that's enough alright Naruto, since you obviously wanted to talk about the chance someone could be trying to steal Konoha bloodlines during the exams, what is it that you think we could do to prevent that? Naruto said I've actually got a good idea. Well, I think it's a good idea. I'm not sure though, but if it works then it will complete one of your students' goals in life. As he scratched his head. Kurenai said how so? Naruto said well I don't really know a lot about this subject, so I'm not sure if it will work, but what if we requested a seal designed that would allow us to protect our bloodlines but have it where it can only be turned on or off by the person who has the seal on them? It's just an idea, and I'm not sure it will work, but it might be possible. Kakashi said it could be possible, but not in the timeline we are talking about, couldn't you ask for some more of those? Naruto frowned, knowing Kakashi was talking about the ring, and said no Kakashi-sensei. I can't say hey that might work. Ino asked, what might work? Naruto said a summon seal. I admit I don't know how they work, but I've seen Jiji summon people immediately to him with a scroll in his office. What if we had a summoning scroll that would summon us just as a precaution? Maybe put a small signal seal on us somewhere, that way if one of us believes that someone isn't in the exams for the exams, but to steal our bloodlines we could activate the signal seal and our sensei can pull us out of danger. I think each of us wouldn't mind failing an exam if it meant protecting our bloodlines. Kakashi said that's a good idea, but there's a chance someone's not after your bloodlines and you could have activated the seal on accident. Asuma said I just had a crazy idea about Konoha in charge of the exam. This time there's no saying we have to do things the way they have before, since we have a new Hokage. It would be easy to claim she changed the way the exams were because she felt the old exam was outdated. All we have to do is convince Tsunade that due to the danger to the heirs and heiress of the clans that we should change the exams, but to change it to what is the question. A grin grew on Naruto's face and said I think I know the perfect test. Ino said why do I feel scared all of a sudden? Naruto smirked and said do you really want me to answer that? Thought so, what I was just thinking of is the wave mission with a twist. If I hadn't gotten that info on Zabuza and Gato we would have probably all died on that mission. What if the test was information gathering, tracking, recon, and capture? Make it where we have to start somewhere in the village and we have to gather intel on a target. Say a Chunin who's been given special orders to stay in the village while changing locations every hour, but once every 6 hours he meets up with another person who also has the same orders. The teams would have to first find their target, follow him or her. Have some kind of password the two would share along with a location of an item, and then where they are to meet someone giving the password. Say the scroll could be hidden at Training Ground 7 under the bridge. The team that comes here gets the scroll, but then they have to get it to the person in a time limit. If not then they fail. It's a little rough, but I'm sure it would be usable with a little planning. Asuma said, what about the threat to the villagers? Naruto said yeah, I guess that wouldn't work. Kurenai said no, it would work, just not the way you're thinking. Let's say we start at the academy, each team that passes the first stage gets a scroll and a training ground. They then have to take the scroll to the training ground they got. The teams fight for scrolls and either steals the scroll, kills it, or the other team forfeits their scroll. If they have both scrolls and it's the same scroll, then they have to stay and defend their training ground they are given while the losing team goes back to the academy. The losing team now has information they could trade for information by finding out what team has what scroll from the other losing teams. Say both teams had a scroll with heaven on them and lost, and when they got back found a team that lost their earth scroll, they could go and fight the team on another training ground for the earth scroll, and if they won then they could go and fight the team they already lost to once in order to get a match set. Once a team has both heaven and earth scrolls, they open them both and summon a proctor who marks them as a finalist. An aged voice that all of the ninja recognized said all of those are very good ideas. Everyone turned and said Sandame-sama. Except Naruto, who said hey Gigi. And Asuma, who said hey Pops. Sandame smiled and said hello everyone. I was just coming by to see how Team 7 was after returning from such a dangerous mission recently, and I couldn't help but overhear your conversation about the threat to the clan heirs in the test. I agree you do make some valid points, and I like the idea, but a few extra rules I could think would make it even more real, like the team that wins can't leave their training ground, so all the supplies and food they have is what they have on them. That gives the other teams an advantage of being able to rest, resupply, and prepare to ambush the winning team. It's possible that some teams would only have one battle and pass to the third round, but others could have several battles and still not pass, and then there is the chance of false information. I will discuss this idea with Tsunade and the council, and I am sure we could improve on the idea as to not only make it more difficult but also make it where your three teams don't have a huge advantage. Kiba said excuse me Sandame-sama, but doesn't Naruto, being Tsunade's cousin, give him and his team an unfair advantage? Laughter could be heard and everyone turned to Naruto, who said actually Kiba, my team is at a more disadvantage. First there is Iwa, who has already tried to kill me because of who my dad was. Odds are they will send a team in that will try and kill me just on principle. Then there is the fact that Tsunade and I don't get along. In fact, I publicly embarrassed the hell out of her at the council meeting by not only offering her to Sasuke as a wife, but now when she's not working at the Hokage Tower or the hospital, she has to wear a naughty nurse outfit and give massages to her and Kakashi-sensei. I wouldn't be surprised if she had us catching Tora the rest of our lives and not allowing us to take the exams. Kiba looked around and said, why is it that none of you seem surprised about this? Ino said, I am, but I was under house arrest. Sasuke shrugged and said, weird things happen around our team all the time, so it's not that surprising. Choji said, because Naruto won't make it to the Chunin exams because I plan to kill him right now. As he pulled out a kunai and began to run at Naruto to the shock of everyone, and as he got closer the kunai in Choji's hands broke apart as a click sound was heard as Naruto removed his hand from his sword. Everyone was frozen by that, and Naruto turned his head and looked at Choji, and he heard Desire talking while Ino screamed, Choji, what the hell are you doing? Yuko, as everyone tried to figure out what's going on. Naruto said, silence Ino, in a commanding voice, causing her to stop talking. She turned and said, but. Naruto said, no Ino. As he looked at her and she lowered her head. Sandame said, why did you attack a fellow Khan? Naruto cut his eyes and said, stop Gigi, this is a personal clan matter over a misunderstanding similar to the misunderstanding between Kurenai and I earlier. The matter will not cause any more trouble as Choji and I will settle it privately. Choji glared at Naruto and Naruto sighed and said, fine. Choji is upset because he sees Ino as somewhat of a sister and he also has a crush on her, as does Shikamaru. They both are angry at me, which is why when Choji was charging me, Shikamaru sent his shadow behind him to grab me at the last second to keep me from reacting, but before either could connect, I used wind manipulation to cut his kunai in half. The reason they are angry at me is the same reason Ino has my scent all over her and the fact she quit talking when I told her to. Ino said, his fiancé, causing several to go wide-eyed. Choji said, no you're not, you're his slave. Quit protecting this asshole Ino. Ino shook her head and said, husband and wife, boyfriend and girlfriend, fiancé, master and servant, lovers, friends, they're all titles used to describe a relationship one has with another. I've been with Naruto since before we were put on the same team together. I'll admit that he's spanked me and scolded me for being bad, but I'm a bitch. Getting in trouble excites me and the entire servant, slave thing we have, was my idea. Choji Shikamaru, I see you both as brothers, teammates, and friends, but I could never feel for you the same way I feel for Naruto. He's saved my life. He's protected me, got me to start taking my career serious, as well as to start treating other better. I'm not a little princess who has to be protected or who has to be put up on a shelf and looked at. I've got tits and a twat, and I'm not afraid to use them. Kiba blew back with a nosebleed moments later as Choji gaped and Shikamaru slapped his forehead and said troublesome. Clapping could be heard, drawing everyone's attention, and everyone looked up in a tree and saw Chance said, "You know how to pick them, Naruto." And the Sandame's eyes widened slightly and thought, it can't be, she looks just like. Naruto looked nervous and said, "Chance, what are you doing here?" as he rubbed his head. Chance said, "What, can't I come see my godson when I want to?" Naruto said, "Well yeah, but." Sandame said, "Who are you and how did you get to the village?" in a commanding voice. Naruto bit his lip and Chance said, "I'm Naruto godmother. As for how I got in the village, Naruto has a summoning seal on him that allows me to summon myself to his location, but you already know my name, toddler." As she looked at Saratobi. Saratobi paled as he looked at Chance and said, "Impossible, you." Chance said, "All will be revealed shortly. Remember the first lesson Hashirama taught you, patience, but for now I have a more pressing matter as to why I am here." As she turned her eyes away from the Sandame and looked at Naruto. Naruto said, "What is it?" Chance said, "Pull out the color joker." Naruto frowned and pulled out the cards and then shifted through them until he got the color joker card out, and Chance said, "Good, now take your shirt and cloak off." Naruto blinked and said, "What? Why?" Chance looked nervous and said to Naruto, "You remember what I told you and Kakashi about on the bridge?" Kakashi frowned and said, "I remember. What's going on?" Chance glanced at him and then back at Naruto, who was looking nervous as everyone was glancing between Chance, Kakashi, and him, and she said, "Naruto, you know I respect your privacy of things related to your parents and your bloodline, but a couple of things happened that we never could have predicted. You remember on the way back when Desire was able to cast that illusion of your memories?" Naruto frowned and said, "Yeah, what about it?" Chance said, "The reason she could do that is because she's accidentally absorbed some of your chakra and your blood, more specifically, the blood and chakra you got from your mother." Sandame said, "What is going on, Kakashi?" Naruto, explain, what is she talking about?" Kakashi frowned and said, "I can't say for sure until I know more. Please let her finish explaining so I can properly explain if Naruto doesn't, sir. I think I know, but I could be wrong." Sandame looked at Naruto and then at Chance and said, "Then will you explain?" Naruto looked in thought and said, "Is this related to why I've been feeling different lately?" Chance said yes. Naruto frowned but took Desire off his back and then began taking his cloak off, followed by his shirt, and several blinked or blushed seeing Naruto's body. Chance whistled low and said, "You've gotten even more buff since the last time I saw you." Naruto said, "I've taken my shirt and cloak off. Now what's going on?" Chance sighed and said, "A day for a day, I didn't tell you the entire truth when I told you about the color joker. The color joker was to only be used on your birthday for a reason. I didn't want to tell you the reason why it was decided to be used on your birthday is every time you use it, you will lose 1 day off your life." Everyone's eyes widened at this, and the Sandame said, "What?" Chance said, "The card is specifically designed to bring Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze, Naruto mother, back from the dead for 1 day. It's designed to take 1 day of his life away from him in order to let her live for 1 day. Normally I wouldn't do this and would never have mentioned the cost of it, except Kushina is the only one who can prepare Naruto for what is about to happen to him. She's the only one who can teach him to use it also without destroying himself. There is a reason the Kamichi bloodline hasn't been known before now." Sandame narrowed his eyes and said, "And is this the same way you are alive, Lady Senju?" causing several to blink. Sakura said to Senju, "Are you related to Tsunade and Naruto?" Chance looked at Sakura and said, "You could say that there aren't many who would remember me when I used to live in Konoha." Asuma asked, "Toddler?" Sandame turned a little red and said, "It's nothing." Chance said, "I gave him the name when he would come pick up my daughter for training." Sandame said, "You still haven't answered my question." Chance said, "I think we should discuss this later, since Naruto needs to summon his mother back to life before something happens that he will hate for the rest of his life." Naruto frowned and said, "What exactly is happening?" Chance frowned and said, "Like accidentally killing every living thing on the planet." At this everyone's eyes widened, and Naruto turned pale, and he whispered, "What do you mean?" Chance frowned and said, "Naruto, just trust me, I can't say anything. Only your mother can." Naruto frowned and said, "Fine, tell me what to do." Chance said, "Cut your hand and put your blood on the Joker while sending chakra into it. Just keep sending chakra to the card until your mom appears, but please, don't use this card more than once a month. If you use it more than that, instead of losing 1 day off your life, you will lose 1 year off your life every time you use it, and it will still only allow her 1 day. Please don't abuse this gift." Naruto said, I understand where this goes." As he cut his hand with a kunai and put the blood on the card and began to send chakra into it. Sandaime frowned, as did several others, as the card began to glow, as did Naruto, and after 20 seconds there was a puff of smoke in front of Naruto. Several coughed until the smoke cleared, and the adults paled, while Naruto got a real smile on his face, as there stood Kushina, who smiled at Naruto and said, "Hello, my son." Kushina was quickly tackled by a hug from Naruto, and she spun around with him for a moment to keep her footing. As they stopped spinning, Naruto reluctantly let go, and Kushina looked at him with loving eyes, and she leaned down and kissed him on the forehead. Sandaime said, "Kushina, is really you?" Kushina turned to look at him before her happy look turned into a very angry look, and she said, "Do you want that answer before or after I kick your fucking ass, you worthless piece of shit?" Sakura said, "Hey, you can't talk to her." She was silenced as Kushina appeared behind Sakura with a scythe in her hand held against Sakura's neck at a speed no one besides Chance was able to follow. Kakashi swallowed and said, "That's definitely her." In a scared voice. Naruto said, "Mom, stop please." As he looked at Kushina. Kushina looked at Naruto and said, "Fine." As she removed the scythe and slapped Sakura across the back of the head, sending her flying 30 feet away, causing everyone to look at Kushina in shock except Chance. Naruto glared at Kushina, who said, "What? After all the times she hit you growing up, she had that coming. Even if she has changed." Sakura slowly stood up and held her head, and Sandaime said, "Why are you here, Kushina? Why were you brought back to life?" Kushina looked over at him and then at Naruto and then frowned and said, "Son, are you ashamed of who and what I am?" Naruto's eyes widened and said, "What? Of course not, Mom. I never could be ashamed of you. The day I first met you was one of the happiest days of my life." Kushina smiled and wiped a small tear away and asked, "Well then, do you hate your father?" Naruto looked confused and said, "I'm angry with him, but I can't hate him." Kushina walked over and sat down on her knees in front of Naruto and said, "Then are you ashamed of who and what you are then?" Everyone but Chance seemed confused, and Naruto said, "No, what's this about, Mom?" Chance said that something is happening to me and you had to come explain what's going on. Kushina closed her eyes and said, "Close your eyes, son, please, trust me." Naruto frowned but closed his eyes, and Kushina said, "Now send chakra to your eyes, just a little, good, now open them." Naruto opened his eyes, which were now glowing blue, and Kushina opened her eyes that were glowing green, and Kushina said, "Now look around and tell me what you see. Start with Ino." Naruto turned to look at Ino as everyone there observed him, and he said, "What the hell?" Ino asked, "What do you see in Naruto?" Naruto said, "I see white." "Well, no, that's not accurate. It's like I can see inside of you, and your inside is mostly white, but you got a couple of little dark spots. Whoa, Gigi, your body is about 30% black." "What am I seeing, Mom?" Kushina said, "Their souls." Causing everyone's eyes to go wide. Naruto stopped sending chakra to his eyes and screamed, "What? But how? How can I see their souls?" As he turned to look at his mother. Kushina stood up and said, "Son, I hate to say this, but I have no choice before sunset today. You will transform. When you do, the world will relearn the secret of how bloodlines are first created and everything that goes with it." Naruto began to go pale and whispered, "So that means my secrets as well?" Kushina said, "Yes, but for you it gets worse." As she looked at the ground. Naruto screamed, Worse, how the hell could it get any worse?" Kushina closed her eyes, pulling the hood from her cloak over her head and leaned forward slightly, and the black robe she was wearing began to move, and black feathered wings shot out of her back through some slits that were in the robe, shocking everyone. The golden glow began to cover Kushina, giving her a more holy look as the scythe reappeared beside her, and she put her hand in front of her face, and a mask began to appear on her face as her eyes glowed through the eyes of the mask. When she removed her hand from her face, the flesh around her fingers disappeared, showing bones. Naruto looked at her, as everyone else, but Chance looked at her in fear, as the figure of the Shinigami stood before them. Kushina looked at her son and said, "Do you hate or fear me now, son?" Naruto, who did not look scared, said, "No mother, I somehow knew you looked like this. Am I going to transform like you?" Kushina closed her eyes and blackness covered her as her flesh returned and the mask disappeared along with the scythe, and Kushina pulled the hood off her head and said, I don't know what's going to happen to you. All I was told was that you would have to accept who and what you are or be destroyed by what you would become." As a tear fell, Naruto lowered his head and Sasuke asked Kushina what was going on. Kushina turned to look at Sarutobi and she heard, "It's alright, mother." As she turned to look at Naruto, who walked over and sat down on the bridge, letting his feet hang off over the water. Kushina looked at Chance, who nodded, and Kushina walked over and sat down behind Naruto and pulled him back to where he was leaning against her chest as she wrapped her arms around him and whispered, "I'm her son." Both remained silent as Chance said from the tree she was in, "I will explain what is happening, but only if each of you give me your word, verbally, that you will keep what you are about to hear a secret." Sandame said, "Why should we do so?" Chance smirked and snapped her finger, and the entire clearing was covered in smoke, and when it cleared there were thousands of snakes of different sizes in the clearing, and wrapped around Chance was a white snake, and she said, "Because I'll have my pets here kill each and every one of you if you don't. The only reason I don't know is because of Naruto, as I know it would hurt him. Oh, and in case you think you could just destroy these little ones here and escape, I should tell you something. There are 8 tribes of snake summoning contracts. One is possessed by Orochimaru and another by Naruto. However, all the snake summons, including the bosses, will listen to me because this little guy right here is father of all snake summons and regular, and I am his master. Isn't that right, my little baby?" As she kissed a snake on the nose. Snake Eyes said in a slithering voice, "Yes, my lady." Sarutobi paled as he heard this, and Chance looked at him and said, "You should know that better than anyone, toddler, since I was the one who first gave Orochimaru's summoning contract." Sasuke said, "Wait, then that means Naruto lied to us about how he got his." Chance said, "No, he told you he was approached by a summoned snake, which he was. I had my little pet here approach him after I left your group and give him the same test that he gave Orochimaru to get his contract. He bit him, and whichever tribe he became immune to is which tribe he got. Naruto got the contract for the second most powerful snake contract out there, while Orochimaru got the weakest. So do I have your attention, or do I let my little pets feed?" Sarutobi frowned and said, "I promise to keep what you say a secret, and I order all of you to do the same." As he looked at the other Konoha ninja. One by one each of them gave their word, and after they did, Chance said, "See, that wasn't that hard, but you should know, don't think you can go back on your word. After all, you wouldn't want to break your word with a goddess. Would you allow me to formally introduce myself? I am the goddess of chance, also known as Lady Luck. Naruto mother over there is known to some of you as Kushina, but her real name is Shinigami, the goddess of death. Naruto is in fact a demigod, half mortal, half god." Kiba snorted and said, "Yeah, right." Chance said, "You doubt me, boy. How about a little game then? Does anyone have a coin?" Kakashi said, "I do, Chance-sama." As he pulled out a quarter. Chance said, "It has 2 different sides. Good. Please give that boy the coin now, kid. You doubt me to prove that I really am the goddess of chance, or, as some call me, Lady Luck. I want you to throw that. I don't care how you do it, but that coin will always land on its side, where it will never be heads or tails until I say otherwise. Go ahead, prove me wrong, mortal." As she leaned back and pulled out a nail file and began to buff her nails. Kiba said, "Yeah, right, Lucky call dumb luck this a trick coin." Chance said, "Nope, give it to someone else, anyone there, and when they throw it, call out heads or tails. While it's in the air you will lose every time." Kiba glared at her and said, "Here, sensei proves her wrong. Heads, tails, heads, heads. What the hell, you're cheating somehow. Using magnetism or something." Chance said, "Really? Then name any game of luck and you will lose if you decide the game." Kiba said, "Rock, paper, scissors." Chance said, "Sure, turn your back from me and I'll make my sign here so I can't see you and you can't see me, and you can have everyone here see that I am telling the truth, and you will lose every game. Ready to go." Kiba had a smug look on his face when Kurenai said, "You lost, Kiba, again and again." Thanks for watching my video. Leave a like if you enjoyed my video, and also do consider subscribing to my channel for more awesome content. If you want the next part of this story, let me know in the comment box. See you next time. Till then, sayonara.